was and what was, yeah.
Well, you know.
Alrighty.
Consider
Ready?
the source.
Good over there, Brian? Go ahead.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to the April 20th of 2021 Wright County Board of Commissioners meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome, everybody. All right. The minutes from April 6th.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 6th.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
on page 8, the bottom of the page, the letter to the legislator,
Oh,
there's an error. Should be Senate File 276 throughout. It's the first line there. It says, I think, 279 or something. The motion is correct, but in the explanation, it's wrong.
Gotcha.
I'll amend my,
Okay, so the letter we sent then was correct.
Yes,
Okay.
I hope.
last time I read it, because we just had to remove those very few words out of the letters, that was it, so.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Houston. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Review and approval of the agenda. Is there anything that anybody needs to add to the agenda? Not, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I will move today's agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Wetter. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. The consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they would like removed from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ketchmark.
I just have 4 items from the warrant list for clarification and/or correction.
So one, so basically pull B1 off for clarification on 4 items.
Yes.
Okay, you want to make a
I'd
motion with that?
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda with those items pulled for review or clarification.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Is there anything else anybody would like removed for additional discussion? Hearing none, motion by Commissioner Ketchmark, second by Commissioner Vetch. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Ketchmark.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. So going through the warrant list for the week, and I have page numbers if people want reference, but one item was called Multi-Vista. It was for GC documentation was the explanation. I did some checking and found that that's a company that's been hired to take pictures of the project with the new building as it progresses. And that figure was $2,820. Then there was an expense of AAA Security Services, and it was coded as Department 025, which Court Services, and doing further research, they weren't aware of what that would have been for. It turns out that should have been coded to corrections, and it was for hospital security for an inmate. Next thing was an expense that was described as LP Chalet. I did some research on that, found that that is a building at the Bertram Parks, and that was a propane expense. And the last thing was an expense for Powers Machining Special Project Billboards. It turns out that was some form of a jail partition for inmate security / safety for $4,655. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I just question back, just what you just wanted to make for clarification on those, on what the description was, correct?
Right,
Okay.
yes,
All right.
because just reading through public document for everybody to read, and I just did some research to figure out what they were.
Okay, so the warrant should have gotten corrected and transferred to corrections instead of court services.
Right.
And did you talk to the proper people regarding that?
They found that as part of our research, and I guess I can check with Bob here if
Yeah,
he,
Lindsay and I will make sure that it's corrected to corrections versus court.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry, that was the one correction that,
so just a coding error, is that probably what it was?
Yeah, Department 025 versus 250. There's a-
Ah,
Oh, yeah.
that's easy enough to mess up. Well, as long as we're talking about the warrants and stuff, I was looking through some of them, and there was a number of them that were way over budget. Percent-wise, it wasn't really a whole lot of money-wise, but it just made it look, and a lot of it is, you're gonna see that, a lot of it is because of the ERP system, that we're changing some of the different explanations, and so we budgeted in one, but now they've changed the number to something different, so it looks really skewed. So we're gonna see a lot of that probably for the next year as we move into our ERP system. So some of the stuff is gonna look really strange out there too. All right, well, thanks for catching that.
Yep.
And will you make a motion, Commissioner Ketchmark?
make a motion to accept the consent agenda with those changes proposed, with the one anyway.
Well, yeah, with the change, yep. So you acknowledge the warrants with the modification of the AAA security, you're getting coded to criminals.
Right,
Or not criminals, to
corrections.
corrections.
Yes, I'll make
I
that
guess it's still
motion.
too early in the
I
morning.
know. I second that.
Do you need more coffee?
I guess so.
Still in Florida.
Yeah, that must be what it is.
Motion by Commissioner Ketchmark, second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Okay, well, we're only 5 minutes late. Ms. Kelly Day?
Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm here this morning to present this to you for approval and signatures. It is the Maple Crest Second Edition. Plat is located in Maple Lake Township.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the Maple Crest Second Edition in Maple Lake Township plat.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any further discussions? Hearing none, all those, this is just a regular motion, right? It's not a
Was that a resolution?
It's a regular motion.
The first time
regular
I
motion, not a
presented one.
resolution? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Okay,
Thank
I'll
you,
place
Kelly.
this in the back room, and if you could use this pen
Yep.
for signatures. Thank you.
Will
Thanks,
do.
Kelly.
Deputy Sheriff Matthew Treichler.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Today I have a resolution presented to you to accept a grant from the Department of Public Safety specifically for speed and aggressive driving enforcement. This is kind of above and beyond the TZD grant that we were already awarded earlier this year. This one's for $11,600 with a $2,300 match.
Could we cross off the enforcement and just go with the speed and aggressive driving grant?
Unfortunately, I don't get to name the grant, but
Oh, okay, yeah, well, it was worth a try.
yeah, I can make that suggestion to the state.
This is a resolution?
Yeah, I will make a motion to pass this resolution, accept the donations.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Wetter. Is there any further discussions on this?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Ketchmark?
One question for the chief.
Yeah.
Any thoughts or plans on how the time and money or resources would be allocated throughout the districts in the county in particular?
So the scheduling, obviously Sergeant Hinton handles the scheduling of a lot of those shifts. He coordinates with the lieutenant, and it kind of depends on, what issues we're having at that time and where. We do try to spread those shifts around the county. Obviously the Northeast, given its amount of traffic flow, seems to generate the most shifts in those areas. We do try to hit and touch every district.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there any other questions, discussions? Hearing none, resolution, Commissioner Ketchmark.
Ketchmark votes aye.
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 Resolution carries unanimous. Thank you, Deputy. Chief, Deputy. Sorry. Well, we're making some time here. We're only 2 minutes late now. Mr. Hawkins, how are you this morning?
Very good, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board of Commissioners. Today there's 2 highway items for your consideration. The first one is to accept the plant mix bituminous seasonal bids that we received bids on April 8th. We got bids from Oman Brothers in mid-Minnesota, and we recommend accepting all these unit price bids.
And Virgil, just for clarification, the reason we do it is because even though one is higher priced than the other, if we're closer, trip charges and all that sort of stuff, it's more economical to pick it up, even though it's cheaper in one location instead of driving, correct?
That's correct. This gives us the flexibility, depending where we're doing patching throughout the county, to pick up mix from the different bidders in locations. So sometimes a lower bid might cost more if there's longer distance trucking.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be
Mr. Chair, I'll
motion.
make a motion to accept the plant mix bituminous for seasonal bids.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Is there any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Item number 2, Virgil.
Okay, thank you. The next item is we recommend award of contract 2105, which is our County Road 118 Reconstruction Projects. We received a low bid from Dunick Brothers of Princeburg, Minnesota, in the amount of $4,748,782.51. The low bid was 21% under the engineer's estimate, and this is a collaborative project with the City of Monticello. We're funding our share of it with our local option sales tax funding, and the city is funding their share with city funds.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to award contract number 2105 for County Road 118. And after I get a second, I have a question.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Husum. Actually, I don't want to do this because it's going to be an inconvenience to me.
You're telling me. I have to drive through that intersection all summer. It's going to be quite the, so when is the start date on this? I've had a number of people asking me on, when you guys start to break ground on it?
Yeah, we don't have a start date established yet. We've got to meet with the contractor, but I don't think we allow the work to begin until after school's out.
And you guys are going to be able to have this done by Labor Day?
Yes.
Wow, with that whole roundabout.
Yeah, the roundabouts, they've been doing those pretty quickly.
Yeah, I guess it's just because they have to do it
couple
in
of months.
phases. It's kind of a goofy deal because it's such a high traffic intersection. You guys have to do it in phases, correct?
Correct. There'll be different stages to this project, and the roundabout will be built half at a time so we could keep traffic moving through that intersection.
So traffic will be able to flow through from 18 all the time? 18 will not be closed at all at that location?
Right, yeah, right at the intersection with School Boulevard and 18. That'll be open at all times, but south of there on 118 will be closed and there'll be a detour for that.
Yeah.
Because there's really no viable detours
No.
around that intersection of
No,
School
there-
Boulevard and 18. There's, I mean, you'd have to go quite far to detour it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and that, with traffic on the freeway this summer, 18 gets abused quite a bit, so that's why I was just curious on making sure that was never gonna be shut down.
Will you guys still be for, because I know it's listed as the alternate route for 94, when 94 has issues. Do you guys, can you route them on 39 for the summer while you're doing that? Or through that intersection, or is it gonna be still that easy to get through it still, even if you have as an alternate route?
Yeah, those alternate route signs were put up by MnDOT throughout the state for parallel routes to their major interstate routes. And so those are signs put up by MnDOT that if something happens, a bad crash, and they need to get people off the freeway right away, that those signs are in place already. And those will stay even though this project will be going on.
Now, they give us money for using up our roads, right?
Or Casaba?
MnDOT gives us money when there's a specific detour route, which we have an agreement with. They give us nothing for the alternate route signs.
Ah, that doesn't quite seem fair.
I don't know, they do give us CASA money, so.
Well, they give that to everybody. Alrighty, and this is just a regular motion. So I have a motion by Commissioner Vetch, it was second by Commissioner Houston.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Virgil.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay, let's move on to other things, items for consideration. This ag and drainage stuff, that just takes forever. Good morning, Matthew.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Yeah, this one should be pretty easy. It's just the approval of the pay application number 1 for Blackstone on County Ditch number 10. I have included an email from Chris Adams, the construction administrator from ISG. They kind of did a bid item cutoff date, dates to submit these pay applications to the board. There'll be 9 total throughout the construction season, finalizing in November. So I figured I'd put this one on as a timed item in case you had any questions, and the rest I'll put on consent for your approval as they come up. But since it's the first one, it's the first time we've handled a big bid project like this, I figured I could answer any questions you guys had.
So what did they do for that 124,000 so far?
Yeah, ditch digging, it's an itemized bid, so they track when they go, I'll pull it up here. Ditch bottom cleaning, slough repair.
Now, is this at the end of the ditch or at the beginning of the ditch or in the middle?
Throughout the ditch. They have basically the whole ditch dug now. They need to spread the spoils, and then they'll be coming back, installing culverts, resetting those, and installing side inlets. So they wanted to go ahead and get that section of it done. They had 3 crews working at times, so that went really fast. And now they'll slow down. They'll have 1 crew out there handling the other projects, but significant amount of the ditch digging is already completed.
I suppose they had to do it when weather conditions were right for that.
Exactly, and they have other jobs that they already had bid on and projects they needed to get to. But yeah, fortunately they were able to get a lot of crews out there and get a lot done in this time period. So
Good.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Ketchmark.
And just to kind of echo what Mr. Chair was talking about, but in addition, if at the time of the payment, the work doesn't match the payment for weather or unforeseen circumstances, is that schedule or amount adjusted according to what they actually got done if it's a huge offset, or does the payment plan continue regardless of the work schedule and what's done at that time?
yeah, so when IC brings us a payment application, whether it's the next one, which is number 2 or number 5, it's all dependent on how much work they have done in between the last payment application to that one. So they track that, and they actually survey as they're going, track how many linear feet of ditch cleaning they've done. So if they've done a quarter of the ditch cleaning, they only get paid for a quarter of what their contract price was until that's completed. So that might be completed on the next payment application, but essentially they only get paid for what they've completed thus far in the process. based on these specific dates.
Okay, good, thank you.
And this project's supposed to be done by November, was that my understanding? Good. This
Yeah,
is
nice-
gonna be a
nice to have
show,
that one.
it's gonna be a showpiece for the county, I think, with improved water quality and everything else, so.
And Blackstone's been doing a great job so far, so I've been out there quite a bit looking at them, and no complaints thus far, so.
Good, good. Hopefully it all improved the water at Lake Ann and stuff too.
Yeah, after many years of working on this project, it's been really great to see it done.
Yep. All right, I haven't had a motion yet, have I?
No,
I'll make a motion to accept that payment plan.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Ketchmark, second by Commissioner Wetter. Is there any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
think Matt,
That was unbelievable fast.
yeah.
Why can't you make all ditch ones like that? All right, items for consideration. Committee minutes for the county board workshop. Commissioner Wetter, you were graciously enough to volunteer to do this.
Thank you for calling me gracious. Okay, all the members were present except for Commissioner Vetch. Okay, this happened on April 13th. We scheduled a tour of the new government center to see what the progress was, and that's going to be after this meeting. Then the Great River Regional Library presented a report, and Karen Punsack from the Great River Regional Library gave us some information. And there are 15 members on the board, and 4 of those are from Wright County. There was an increase of 18% in digital library users over this last year. And they have curbside pickup and drop-off, and that started in May of 2020. Then Sarah Covista, who's the coordinator of Cokato and Howard Lake Libraries. In April 2020, they started curbside only, and their staff spent a lot of time just instructing the people how to use some of their services. The libraries are open with limited space for gathering right now. Then Chris Pomeranke, coordinator for Buffalo Library, also spoke, and she claimed that they had been open for over 30 years, and that I think we kind of questioned that it was a lot longer than 30 years. All the employees at the Buffalo Library are residents of Wright County. The library was closed and curbside services happened. And also the Great River Regional Library received a state grant last year so that they have Wi-Fi outside their buildings. Okay, then the sheriff, John Derringer, gave us an informational update on his department, and he explained that he got a call on Sunday, April 11th, from the Hennepin County Sheriff David Hutchinson, and for help in Hennepin County, and they were he said within a few moments he had all kinds of staff members that volunteered. And so he sent 14 staff members along with a 13 passenger transport van. And they went to Hennepin County to help there. He also explained a little bit about the jail. He said there were 16 positive COVID tests in the jail, and He came up with a policy and procedure at the start of COVID on how to handle this. And he's got quarantine and isolation periods for every person that is brought into custody. And every positive COVID test has been from a different agency. In November of 2020, the sheriff's office had 13 employees out with positive COVID tests. And since December, he hasn't had one staff member with a positive COVID test. There are 70 Wright County inmates now and about 40 boarders. He also gave us an update on the training center. And last year, the training center wasn't used correctly, so,
Well, not that it wasn't used correctly, just that COVID with,
yeah, because of the COVID. And so it just wasn't utilized as much as they had hoped it would be. And the first 3 months of 2021, there's been $4,200 worth of free tuition because the sheriff's office was able to hold the sessions there. And 3 of our people at a cost of $699 per person were able to attend peer support training at no cost. There's an outdoor range, an indoor range, and a classroom, and the FBI rated the training center as one of the top in the county.
country.
Yeah, in the county, that would be
I hope it's the top one in
true.
the county.
It's number one in the county.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Oh, and
question
no
about it.
problem with that. And he's also invited retired staff to the center so that they can keep up their law enforcement officer safety permit. They've got a memorandum of understanding with the Minneapolis Police Department, so when help is needed from them, they will go. And they are used pretty much for Hennepin County Government Center and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office for security. And a question was asked, and we get about 75% funding reimbursement on that. Then we talked about the American Rescue Plan, and Administrator Lee Kelly had attended a webinar from the Minnesota Management and Budget on April 9th. And the timeline from the U.S. Treasury for the distribution of funds is not known right now. And of course, everyone's waiting for guidance on how to use those funds. And then the funds for townships and cities, that was going to be going through the state instead of the federal. Also, some action was taken regarding the broadband at township officers meeting, which was very successful that evening. IT Director Matt Bombi talked about the $10 million available to spend on broadband, but again, there's little guidance out there on how we can spend it. The board was provided a map by him, and this was information that was collected from the townships and the cities regarding the status of broadband. And it was suggested that we reach out to the schools to get more information. And then IT Technical Service Manager Mark Kellogg added that working with the state to obtain information was kind of very, very difficult, but that he's trying to locate where fiber is already buried in the ground. So it was suggested and recommended that Project Administrator Elizabeth Carrolls would send a copy of the questionnaire to the commissioners to share with the townships and cities, and she has done that. The commissioners will speak with the townships and cities and collect more information on IT. And that's the end of what was discussed.
Okay, do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes
Do I have a
And
second?
recommendation.
and the recommendation. Thank you, Commissioner.
second that.
Houston.
Motion by Commissioner Wetter, second by Commissioner Houston.
I'll get with it one of these
Is there
days.
any discussions? I do have one under item 4, the American Rescue Plan, second paragraph. A survey was sent out to residents. We didn't send one out to the residents. We sent one to the cities and the townships, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did cities and townships. We did, several months ago, send out or promote a speed test, which was used to gather some data around the county. But that was, like you said, a few months ago.
And that was directly to the residents?
We leveraged the website to get that out.
Okay.
We didn't, actively
So
recruit.
really, there was no survey sent out. It was just based off of our county website information, requests for help and stuff.
Correct, yep.
Alrighty. Any other questions?
No, just, the reason I am kind of sensitive to make sure that we include the recommendation is because we had an issue last year, and so I don't want that to come back ever again.
Okay.
All right. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
I am learning.
Mr. IT Director, do you have any updates that you would like to add into this at this point? Don't talk to Greg that way.
No, sir, we did reach out to, on John Holler's recommendation, which I think was a really good idea, we reached out to some of the school districts who provided us a lot more information. So we're still slowly gathering information. There is still what I would consider an appalling lack of guidance and leadership at higher levels to sort of coordinate our efforts. My big fear is that we're going to end up competing for the same companies to do digging and the same companies to purchase fiber, and there's just going to be a land run. But we're still continuing to gather evidence, and we have actually reached out to a few companies to do some napkin sketches of potential ideas so we can get some rough price estimates and then go forward from there. So I think we have a direction that we are going. I'd like to coordinate with others, but it's sort of hard to when there seems to be no coordinating authority at a higher level. So, but we're continuing to progress.
So are you trying to get the state to hire you to do that? Is that what I'm kind of...
Oh, dear God, no, sir. To be blunt. But I just, it would be nice if there was some sort of coordinating, higher power involved in this sort of effort. And there appears not to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Sir.
Yes.
Anybody else have anything for Matthew? Thank you, sir. All right, administration, dental clinic steering committee meeting. Suggested dates Wednesday, May 5th or Thursday, May 6th.
Yes, thank you, sir. As you recall, we had sent out a, for lack of a better term, RFP to various architecture firms that had experience with dental clinics. We've received now, as of it closing yesterday, 6 proposals. So staff are given that the first review. We would like to set a meeting recommended either May 5th or May 6th for that committee to review. So and then the thought would be out of that committee, we could discuss then at the workshop the following Tuesday.
Okay, that was myself and was it Commissioner Wetter?
Yes.
Letter, yes.
Is either of those days a problem for you or work?
I'm open May 5th and May 6th, not until after noon.
Okay. At this point, I'm open both days.
If you have a preference,
Well, did they have any time that they prefer to do it at all?
we didn't have a recommended time, no. I know a few things in the morning can be moved around. I guess the only conflict I see for myself and others is leadership team the morning of Thursday for staff, so.
Well, since we're both available on Wednesday, why don't we do it that date then?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Say 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning?
Call it a 10?
Commissioner Wider, does that work?
That's fine. Where?
4 o'clock here?
Yeah, let's do here.
Okay.
All right. Can I have a motion for
I'll
that?
make a motion to set that meeting as suggested.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Houston. Or, excuse me, Commissioner Wider. I was close.
You're close.
Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Item 2, resolution setting county board per diems for a newly established committee, which is this committee.
Correct.
Make
Mr.
that
Chair, I'm going to
motion.
make a motion for that, but I'm going to amend it with adding the Solar Advisory Committee as well. That was never put on there.
Weren't they weren't added, Mr. Chair?
No, they were not.
Commissioner- Okay,
Yep.
all right. I will second that motion.
All right, motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Houston. Any other discussions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Just regarding, and maybe we'd have to separate this as far as the steering committee, the per diem. I still have little to no support for the clinic from the constituents, and what I see here is staff time for agenda and meeting minutes, and then a per diem, so more expense for it. So I'm not gonna be able to support that. I don't know how that affects the two per diems, or if we have to separate them for the solar to the steering as far as a vote, or?
Do we need to have resolutions for our per diems?
So this is kind of a housekeeping issue. What we found over the years is somewhat like Commissioner Vetch said, that we have a number of these committees that may come up for a specific purpose. We've been trying to memorialize them as we go here. That's why you've seen a series of these resolutions like this in the past. And that just clarifies, for the sake of staff as well as the audit, what's paid per diem and what's not. So to your question, you could separate it out to two separate motions if you felt necessary, or do it as one. So, but yes, we would need a resolution just to kind of tidy that up.
Commissioner Wetter, do you have any issues with not being paid for this?
Not really.
It's fine. We don't have to add either of them in there. That's fine too. If that's.
Mr. Chair, I don't anticipate it's going to be
Very long.
ongoing.
No.
You know,
I
it's
can
not
only-
like some of these committees that we're on, you know, that
Forever.
meet monthly or
Yes.
quarterly, and they've had a long history. This is
And I'm
essentially.
okay with that if that's, because the solar one, we got probably 8 more. Hopefully, maybe less, but I'm gonna be realistic, maybe 8, 9.
Well, that's
we
a
can,
little longer.
we can change it to, instead of having
I'm
it.
okay either way. I'm just, I wanted to be consistent with whatever we're
No,
doing.
no,
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah. So, I'm kind of in the route of saying if we're gonna do it, we should just uniformly do it for everything, or we don't do it for any, it kind of, either we do it for all of them, whether short or long, or whether, or
Oh, I see what you're saying.
just for a consistency standpoint, otherwise
Yeah.
you get winners
Yeah.
and losers in things. So,
That's true.
Commissioner Catchmark, for consistency purposes, can we just go with one resolution on this?
Well, if we do, I'll vote no for both, just because I don't know how long the steering committee, I mean, we're 2.5 years into the project and don't have a lot going now. Now we're starting the steering committee. I don't know how long that's gonna take or how much expense
I
it's
would say
gonna
you're
be.
probably less than 6 meetings.
But I get, on the principle for the lack of support of it, I wouldn't support. If it's vote on both or none, I'd vote no for both of them then, if we're gonna leave them together.
And Mr. Chair, I guess, as Commissioner Vetch said, when we are appointed to committees, and essentially, whether we agree with them or not, and that's fine, not to agree with it, but we should be consistent and we should offer per diems. We don't have to take them,
Exactly, you don't have to take them.
We don't have to put in
for.
for, per diems if we don't want to, and so that's the other choice that we have as commissioners. I don't always, so, yeah. But
Otherwise, I'm just afraid if we don't do that, we start getting to the point where some people maybe feel like they're getting slighted versus others. So I think it's just the fact that you pass it, you can choose on your own whether you collect it or not.
That's up to us as individuals, but it's nice to have the consistency, and, you know, if we're appointed to committees, then it's offered to us, so.
All right, so we have.
I'm gonna make a motion for the resolution, just for cleaning it with both of them in there as it was originally made. My original motion was already out there, and was there a second on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So-
So we're gonna go. So motion by Commissioner Vetch for resolution setting per diems for the newly established committee, the dental clinic steering committee and the solar committee. Second by Commissioner Hewsome. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, resolution, Commissioner Ketchmark.
No.
Aye.
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 Resolution carries 4-1. Item number 3, Department Budget Review, 111 Building Care.
Alan must be up. Getting himself all ready.
I noticed that Administrator Kelly had sent us some information regarding all of these. I hope you've all had a chance to review those to kind of help things along here with Alan.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Ketchmark.
Good morning, Alan.
Morning, Board.
Thanks for coming in. And as Mr. Chair said, did you get a chance to review the items that were raised for discussion?
Yep.
Okay, and there wasn't any particular order. This again was going back to the beginning of the year with the 132-page budget report, and I've been looking through it, and not that anyone did anything wrong necessarily, but just to clarify some things and an explanation, and if there's anything we need to look at going forward. So looking first to the budget report from 2020, I had asked, after you came to a meeting and told us that we were going to be delayed in moving into the new building because of some proposed changes, I had asked for the budget report for the new buildings to see where we were at, and I didn't receive that yet. Is there any progress or update with that report request?
I guess I'm not sure of that request. I don't recall that.
I don't
coming to
recall
me.
that either, but what specific did you want?
Well, and I talked to Mr. Kelly about that and had a conversation, and he said that Alan was involved in that. Do you remember that, Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, I can certainly send it to you. Sorry about that. I missed it, I guess.
Okay. Well, what brought my attention to it is when he said we were going to be delayed in moving because of proposed changes, and to me that means extra expense. So I was wondering where we were at with the budget of the building with those proposed expenses causing the delay to move into the building.
Sure, and Commissioner, I can answer that question, I guess, and we can get you the report, but that goes back to the changes that were just approved at the, I think, April 6th meeting, as well as the December 15th, I believe, meeting. There was some expansion of the third floor, the reconfiguration of the lower level, the east parking lot, the move of the parking structure, the reorganization of the auditor treasurer / taxpayer services and recorder's office staffing. There's a number of large factors that went into that, and it just basically modified the work schedule and some change orders that fell within contingencies. So we can get you a budget report on the project and show you where that's at exactly, but there shouldn't be anything above and beyond that's been approved.
Okay, thank you. And I thought I heard the phrase unforeseen changes used at some point, and I thought, well, we should probably look and
Mr.
see where
Chair,
we're at.
can I answer that one? I mean, a lot of it was because of the change in the auditor treasurer's office, which was very much unforeseen. When we went into building the building, we weren't expecting the auditor treasurer's office to kind of transition into administration finance and having a centralized finance. So it was originally designed as a separate finance within auditor treasurers, but when it ended up becoming land records, ended up merging with the recorder's office and splitting out of the auditor treasurer's, and auditor treasurer's office was ended up being moved to inside administration. There are some walls that had to be moved to make sure that we're good for the long run. So
Yeah, Mr.
hindsight, if we would have wished we would have known that, you know,
Right.
2 years earlier when we were in the design phase, but
And Mr. Chair, thank you. That's what I was going to say. I mean, 2 years ago, you know, things changed because of, I guess we could call them unforeseen at that time, so, but they certainly,
The county's growing and we're trying to improve things.
Yep.
And if we ever stop trying to improve things, then we'll stop growing.
or the other way around.
Okay, then moving on to, on the budget report, professional services, 542,000 approximately was budgeted and 404,000 approximately was spent. Is there a reason why there was 542 budgeted? Is there some other relief money in there somewhere that would have made up the difference, do you know?
Which one was this for?
Professional services?
261.
Well, part of that is janitorial services, and I guess I'd have to look back into that. I think part of that is that the Justice Center was delayed in opening as well. So some of the costs for services in that facility likely contributed to some of that variance in expense to budget. That one, I guess I wasn't aware of an item that you're looking for on that, so I'd have to dig into that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, sorry if that got mixed up in the list here. I think it's tied to janitorial services at another
Sure.
inquiry too here, but I noticed that, you know, budgeted one thing, spent less, yes, but how does that figure in? So same thing with repairs and maintenance, 600,000 budgeted, 434,000 was spent. So difference of 160 some thousand there.
Yeah, some of that favorable variance goes back to budget cycle last year. I explained to the board that we had kind of anticipated or planned that with this facility, our mechanicals are really starting to get to that point where we need to consider the chiller, the boiler, human services, roof, ceiling hung furnaces, the condensing units, and so we had a little bit of probably extra contingency built into that R&M just in case something failed, so I wouldn't be coming back to rob from a different fund. So that was communicated in the budget process that we wanted to make sure we were good in case that went out, because those are major expenses that we, if they did go out, we'd be kind of figuring that piece.
Mr. Chair, at budgets last year, we hemmed and hawed a lot on that item, just because we chose to have more of a conservative approach. We wanted to make sure that we weren't gonna put ourselves at risk of going over budget in too many lines. So that's kind of right out.
Commissioners, we were able to really scale back everything we're doing at these buildings. Obviously, for disposing of these assets, we're trying to do everything we can to not spend additional funds, and I think that's reflective of that budget and the expense favorable line item.
So that professional services, that 404,000, is that all the ABM cleaning budget?
Right.
That's what that makes up?
Yep.
And then the repairs and maintenance, that's where lawn and snow and building maintenance, like you're talking about, the boiler.
Yeah, essentially any repairs or services that my staff members, I have 16 staff members working for me, anything that we do or perform repairs, general services, chiller maintenances, tower roof repairs, electrical, I mean, you name it across the building. If it's repaired in a building, that comes from that R&M line.
Now, is there any COVID relief that went in to offset that would show up somewhere else?
That would, it was a particular line, and I don't remember the code. I don't know if Bob or somebody remembers that special coding, but essentially the only thing that was paid from that COVID relief fund was our plexiglass panels and services, the hand sanitizer stations, the bulk sanitizer that we purchased, anything directly related to the COVID modifications we made from the facilities was paid from that, but it wouldn't have reflected any just general repairs and maintenance.
Mr. Chair, just want to make sure the clarification is clear too, because the COVID money, because it was put into 100 and we're actualizing it on the back end, you wouldn't get it till the final audit number when we reimburse back, correct?
Yeah, so the bottom, we discussed this the other day at Human Services again too, where you have departments where you'll see the expenditure, but the transfers all work through 100. So you'll see a deficit in the budget of the department, in this case 111-489-6801. That's trued up then by the transfer through 100.
And once again, it was for transparency purposes so that people could really see which departments were hit by COVID and which ones were not. So that way, if you've seen the overages, that would indicate areas that were potentially hit by COVID, and then we'll just reimburse it from the relief funds on the backside.
Okay. Now, under fuel for the buildings, 225,000 was budgeted and 0 was spent. Should that have been moved or coded somewhere else, or
I
what?
think, Commissioner, I think that was in the email that you got explanation on that. That was a line item that was modified in the budget. Their fuel for buildings was moved into utilities. It was kind of a separate tracking line for some reason prior to me being here. There's really no need for tracking it in a separate line, I guess, so all the utilities are now in the utility line.
So going forward in the future, we won't see a 225,000, it's all gonna be allocated to the specific utility.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
It'll go to, it'll go to the utility line 6251. That's where it's paid from currently. It was changed, and I'm not sure the reason it was still in the budget. The modification was just paid from utilities, so it'll just be eliminated essentially going forward.
And I see that, and that's the kind of things that we bring up going forward for potential changes and clarification.
Yeah.
That's an item that can be cleared up just by our discussion here.
Correct, yes, that'll be out of the budget this year. We will not be using fuel for buildings.
And you have a short report, it's a page and a half, so there isn't like some of the folks have 50 pages worth of items to go through. But on the last page, capital furniture and equipment, 30,000 was budgeted, 37,738 was spent. I looked at the invoice, it was a John Deere tractor with a snow blower and a broom. And then a vertical man lift.
Yep.
And I looked through the invoice, I couldn't see what we all got other than the snow blower and a broom and a cab on the tractor. Is there a lawnmower deck on that?
There's not.
Okay. So one-dimensional, there was a comment about using it for snow removal at this building?
Correct. We do use it, all the sidewalks, the entryways, the plaza, all of that space is used, that equipment will be used here.
Okay, and we're gonna revisit this at our lawn and snow meeting coming up on the 29th, but this is just kind of a preface with that. Is this one drug to the other properties also, or is there a tractor at each facility?
There's a tractor at essentially each facility. The Human Services Center does not have one. I should back up. There's a tractor at the Law Enforcement Center. There's a tractor here that are used for sidewalks and plowing. The other facilities, Parks takes care of their own. Highway, we don't have a tractor there. And Human Services, I mentioned, we just have a blower, and then the other two sites, we have the tractor.
Okay. Now the last figure there on the complete budget is, we're to the good 1.2 million approximately dollars. Was that planned, or did that just happen, that abundance, or does that go back to being on the safe side with last year's budget, or is there some COVID funds figured in that, or?
I guess we might be looking at a different report. I'm not seeing that variance.
The last figure, it's all in bold print. It shows the budget 168%. It's right on the same page as the capital furniture and equipment. And revenue 4.8 million, expenditures 3.5, net is 1.2 million. I guess if
Yeah, we
you
may
don't
be
have
looking at a different report, I apologize, but essentially the variances are, one, utilities, we had a variance there. We had a variance in R&M because of the contingency kind of conservative approach we took on this site. Janitorial supplies, we were way under, just because of occupancy levels. We didn't utilize as much supply. There's a number of accounts that I had mentioned we're trying to be as conservative as we possibly could on the sites. So essentially that was, I don't know if I'd say expected, but I don't think it's a surprise that we were under budget per se, in my opinion. We worked really hard to get under budget and save as much as we could towards this budget just because of the assets we know that we're transitioning. So I guess to answer your question, I don't know that it was a surprise, but I don't know that it was also expected to be this large. It was kind of, The tough part is with the utilities opening, we don't have any history, we don't have any trending on the Justice Center. So we're projecting all the utility costs, we're projecting essentially all the R&M type costs on a new facility like that. We're gonna have the same transition when the government center comes online, that next year, we won't have any trending for the Justice Center. And now we're bringing another 223,000 square feet online that we don't have any trending for. So it's kind of a little bit in flux. We're taking projections, we're trying to calculate square footage, usage of utilities, trying to anticipate stuff, but we don't have any trends on this. It's not a new building that we know exactly what it is. Their stuff comes up in new buildings a lot. The first couple of years is kind of a volatile period to understand exactly what you're getting into. So we're going to have a couple of years of questionable, and I shouldn't say questionable, but unknown expense as to what we're getting into from a utility and R&M standpoint. But from this previous year, yes, I think I anticipated as we were going through the season that we were doing a really good job controlling expenses. Once the occupancies went down, all the utility, all the consumption, all the janitorial, all that stuff really scaled back. So I'm not surprised to see that.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Vetch?
I mean, a lot of it goes back to like in 2019 when we were doing the budget for this, we were anticipating potentially getting into the building in June, which we didn't really actualize it more towards September. And then with COVID playing a big change in utilities, so there were those that made it really volatile in terms of what we were putting, because we were essentially throwing numbers at the dark, because you even told us out there, you know, I could go low on it, but we could be way over. So
Yeah,
once again, we
Commissioners,
took that
I
conservative
worked with
approach.
the engineer with BKV, our architect, to make some assumptions and project what utility consumption would be. Not knowing occupancies, that's a complete a variable shot there. So did our best, and we came in under budget. And I think that we worked really hard to get to that point.
Yeah,
Thank you. So
thank you for that.
as far as janitorial supplies, there was a figure of 71,805, but we have a janitorial service. Do we provide the supplies for these folks, or is,
Right.
so we got it all stored here and they come here and use it and do the cleaning?
Well, the way the operation works, they staff, and then it's ordered through our state contract supplier monthly, essentially. Kind of depends on how the usage is, but roughly monthly we get invoice on that, and then they use the supplies to stock our restrooms with their service. Cleaning supplies, they have their own equipment as far as scrubbers and machinery. But we supply all the janitorial, the paper products, the cleaning chemicals, all that type of stuff.
Okay. Now, there was on page 2,
Sorry, Commissioner, if I can just correct, just one other line item to make a comment on the janitorial supplies line, the 6419. That's the same thing as this fuel for buildings. That was separated out for tracking purposes. So if you see on the budget, there was an expense for selected months, but then the budget was 0 on that line. That was a line that was added after budget so that we could track those expenses. So it was pulled out of operational supplies and put into janitorial supplies.
okay. On the, so page 2 of the warrant disbursements from the last couple of weeks, the Quinlivan and Hughes PA legal opinion for $3,707.
Commissioner, or that would be
Yeah,
regarding
that's-
administration.
That was a legal opinion that we got from an attorney. It's an attorney-client privilege kind of a matter at this point. It's a personnel-related item. Now,
Who's considered the client in that client-attorney privilege?
It would be the county.
Does any of the other board members know what that specifically is? Anyone?
My guess it was probably an employee type issue, or it was regarding employees.
Does anyone here have the specifics of that one?
No, Mr. Chair,
And I don't think we should.
personnel matters, unless it has actually entered into litigation, we typically don't, administration doesn't engage the board until it is actually entered into litigation. It may be pre-mediation or maybe even be mediation through HR, at which case administration would use professional services for attorneys to mitigate it. If they can't mitigate it through mediation and it actually goes to full litigation, then at that point, Administrator Kelly would contact the board chair for direction. But we can't discuss this item in any kind of detail because there is named members to it. And if we use the named members to it, we would open ourselves up to litigation.
And I'm not interested in, of course, in the board discussion, but as a sidebar conversation, I'd like to meet with Mr. Kelly as representatives of the employer of Wright County, which us 4 or 5 commissioners are. I'd like to have, if it's a sidebar conversation, to see what this is all about. Can we schedule that, Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, we can make that work. I think it would be also good to include the board chair in that discussion. If we're
That's
gonna have
fine,
it.
whoever's eligible to be there. Well, just so that's on the record, we can talk about that. Thank you.
And then, Mr. Chair, I would just for like history reasons that the board hasn't been involved in mediation level HR issues is mostly because historically you open yourself up to, as our position is political, you open yourself up to a greater chance of litigation by being involved at that lower level of mediation because you tend to basically politicize their HR complaint then by having political figures in those mediations. And you want to avoid that because you may do things or you may be subjecting yourself to make decisions that are maybe not in the best interest for the county, but maybe are your best interest for you from a reelection standpoint. That's the reason that you generally do not go to low-level HR complaint level issues.
Well, the other issue I have is regarding the people's or the persons or whatever's involved, name getting out accidentally. And then we're really opening up ourselves for legal issues.
Yeah. But if we're representing the client and the employer here as Wright County, I'm more concerned with the transparency part and the trust of the public instead of keeping something away from the county board here that makes all the decisions about budgeting and hiring and all these things, but there's a certain part to that we're supposed to be kept out of. I guess if you don't want to know about it, then you don't find out about it, but if you do, you're entitled to know what it is and you run any risks that go with that.
Mr. Chair?
I disagree.
We manage through policy. Our board is policy. We are here to create and adopt the HR policies, and those policies are enforced by our administrator, and he is mediating those policies that we have adopted, and those are his textbook to mediate these issues. He doesn't have any deviation. He's not withholding any information from us. He is just upholding the policies. If you may have concerns that a policy within the personnel policy needs to be changed because of these grievances, then that would be a discussion that we could have at the board. But we don't want to make case-by-case decisions either. All of our decisions should be uniform and should be dealt with through that personnel policy. For which case you shouldn't need to be involved in these on these individual bases.
If we were involved in every case, we would be spending all of our time dealing with grievances and that sort of stuff. There are too many of them to be knowing about absolutely every one.
But involved in knowledge of is two different things to me. I mean, as far as we're testifying in a grievance, but to Commissioner Vetch's point, if we want to think about if policies need to be changed or revised or that kind of thing, if things are kept away from us, we don't even know what there is to really consider or ponder that may need to be revised or changed, because all it shows up as is a legal opinion.
Yeah. And we will find out eventually. But I have faith in the employees that we have hired in HR who know more about the laws regarding human resources than I do. And when you get involved in that, because I have to deal with it in my own business, which I have somebody else that deals with it because it can be really a big quagmire on what you can, what you can't. To me, it is better to leave it go until we need to know.
Mr. Chair, and Mr. Kelly will attest to this, he isn't even aware of every personnel matter that is going on within the county. Our HR and even our assistant HR director manage a lot of the HR complaints. It's the same difference that there is probably many cyber threats that happen within the county, but Mr. Fomby doesn't email us of every cyber threat that comes through. He only gives us the ones that are of the utmost risk to the county. Same with the HR issues, the ones that are of the utmost risk. Does our IT people consult with consultants when they have cyber threats? Yes. Just like HR consults with labor attorneys when they have HR issues. But we are that top level of government. We are that 50,000 foot level. We are that policy development level. We are not the boots on the ground.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Ketchmark.
So it sounds like we're back to, it's our discretion and judgment. If we want to go down that road, we can set up a meet with Mr. Chair and Mr. Kelly. If you don't want to and you think it's too risky, you can opt out of that. That's what the bottom line is.
So long as we have legal opinions there.
And Mr. Chair, I'm not opening to us to start allowing individual board members to be involved in personnel matters. I'm not willing to support that. That puts us at way too much litigation risk.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Ketchmark.
I don't know if that's within the realm of a commissioner that's not the chair anyway, to make a ruling or a proclamation on behalf of all five of us.
I'm not making a proclamation. I'm making a statement that if we're going to do this, then I would ask that we are making a vote on it.
Which is why I want legal opinion.
Okay.
Somebody
Yeah,
there.
I
And
think
then,
that's
and
best.
at that point, then we know.
Right.
Yep.
I think that's a better route than each of us make our own statements on whether we should or shouldn't.
Okay, so moving on?
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we done with the building care, Mr. Chair?
I had a couple more things. On the Lauman Outdoors, the plowing county facilities, it just generalizes $23,604. Do you think we could get it specified out on these bills as to what facilities and what amounts?
Yeah, if you pull the invoice and it's all in IFS and on base, if you grab the invoice, it has every service trip that they made, which site they went to and what service performed at each. It's all attached. It's about I'm gonna guess about maybe a 10-page invoice that has all that attachment to the $23,000 invoice.
But this is a 2-week charge or a month's charge, right?
Just a little over a month. It's February 1 through, I think their service the 1st of March, so it would include a little more than 1 month. I think it was maybe, I'm gonna estimate 7 maybe trips to all the sites, something like that for snowfall events and salting.
It would be helpful, I mean, this is a public report and for everybody to look at if that could be.
Oh, if we started putting down every invoice, everything and trip and all that, 136 pages is now 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with just, we're combining a number of bills into one, which is what you normally do in business. To try and have every invoice out there, nobody could ever go through it. You think 136 pages is terrible? You'd be at 1,000. I mean, already you said that's 10 pages, and I'll guarantee you, then we got to do it for the fuel and for each vehicle. I mean, where'd you stop?
Well, this, Mr. Chair, this was just a subcontract service, but we're gonna revisit on the 29th again, so we can look at that.
Mr. Chair, we've already been on this here for almost a half hour.
He's only has one more item left, if I remember correctly. He said he only had a couple left before the snow plowing one. Let's let him finish up.
Under janitorial services, April, there's a GC and an H. The amount was $29,117. Could you explain what the GC and the H is?
Sure, I think that there's a restriction of the description lines that are allowed in IFS. It actually is longer than that. If you pulled up the description on the invoice, janitorial services are originally contracted for all of our original facilities. Once we moved to the Justice Center, it was expanded to include the Justice Center, so that's why there's two separate invoices. One is for the GC, which is here, the HSC, which is Human Services Center, the Law Enforcement Center, Public Works and Highway. The second invoice that you see show up as a different line item is just specific to the Justice Center services.
Okay, so new government center, is that got a different delineation than this building on these invoices?
Well, we don't have service in the new government center yet, but we will as of next year. So that will be in this year's budget that's submitted for 2022. We don't have anything in the new government center yet because we're still under construction.
Okay, well, thank you, Alan, that's all I had.
Okay. Ramsey Lake Property Owners Association.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to approve a resolution approving a lawful gambling application for the Ramsey Lake Properties Association for an event that's up the creek, or for at the establishment Up the Creek Bar and Grill in Silver Creek Township.
I will second that.
And this is a resolution.
Yes.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any further discussions on it? Hearing none, resolution, Commissioner Ketchmark.
Aye.
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 Alrighty.
Resolution passes.
Advisor Committee, Advisory Board updates. Commissioner Ketchmark.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Attended a fair board meeting, still planning on a fair and other events that they're planning to use the fairgrounds for also, such as a tractor pull coming up. Couple of Safe Schools meetings, Delno, Howard Lake, Waverly, Winstead. They're basically planning for proms and graduation and dealing with a little bit of truancy issues in the school. I went to an MRC meeting, and they were talking about the environmental review program and trying to integrate climate information into that program. There was lengthy discussion and giving feedback to that program on how to exactly do that and if it'll affect feedlots and that kind of thing on large farms. Had a planning commission meeting. The solar ordinance amendment came up as far as the surety deposit, and 6 of the 7 members were there, and it was a split vote, 3-3, on whether to recommend to the board that we amend the ordinance as it pertains to the surety deposit right now. That was the only aspect of it. There wasn't any protest from any solar companies there that are part of the group or showed up at the public hearing, because it was a public hearing. But that'll be coming up to a board meeting for our discussion and recommendation.
Sure. I wanted to ask Commissioner Ketchmark, was the discussion that the recommended amount was too high, too low?
Too high for some of the sizes that were given in the chart. And it was almost as if this was moving towards prohibiting solar in Wright County on like a big hammer coming down on the whole industry per se.
So the public, but the 3-3 vote, the 3 that voted against it, were they against it because it was too high or because they thought it was too low?
No, same thing, Commissioner Vett. That was what they were protesting, that the amount was too high.
Okay.
And that it seems like we're working solar out of Wright County.
Wasn't it regarding, based on the size of it, a percent on what the bonding needed to be, or the?
But basically, Mr. Chair, a minimum amount that could be asked for in the surety by Wright County from the solar companies proposing. But there wasn't a ceiling put on it per se.
Yeah.
There was the minimum. And we kicked around the figures that went into that minimum as far as what the solar company proposed, county staff proposed. another construction company, what their proposed price was to decommission and clean this project up at 25 years, 1 megawatt. And that was the feedback from the commission.
And Mr. Chair, a lot of this was, because I'll give you a little of the scoop on this, was that there were some people that were paying sureties higher than that, and other ones that were paying grossly below that, and we wanted to like just make it linear. So that's where I'm kind of going, well, really, this isn't putting any of them out of the business. This is actually just making all of them on the same playing field. We wanted to be consistent. And before, it was always a negotiation, so some people got less, had a smaller surety, some of them had higher sureties, and this is like, here, this is what the rule is now. So, and I don't know if that got conveyed or not in that meeting.
Well, I guess the most interesting thing to take away is that it's a public hearing and there was zero representation from a solar company protesting this amended ordinance. And that says something,
Well, there's
because,
3 of them involved in this policy that number that we came forward with.
and however many other solar companies got word of the public hearing and could have chose to give feedback if they wished, but they didn't. So we had feedback from people that don't own solar companies but are very pro-solar, and that was the response.
Interesting.
Let's see. Oh, Township Officers Meeting, we attended that at the Justice Center, got a tour. Good turnout by Township officers. Presentation was given by Mr. Chair on the EDA. And that's all I have.
Did we also agree for Commissioner Vetch to cook the meal at the next one?
Ooh, I get to cook one.
Yeah, that'd be, yeah.
We're hosting one in July? I thought that one's usually out in Corona, isn't it? Or no, not Corona,
I think it's
Yeah,
gonna,
Corinna.
it's Corona. Yeah,
no, but it's gonna be at Rockford, I believe, wasn't it?
Right?
Yeah,
Rockford.
they'll probably,
Oh,
maybe
the-
they'll do.
Rockford
Yeah,
Township
it
Hall.
was.
Oh,
The
The one in
Rockford.
July.
oh, it is, okay, that's right.
Commissioner Houston.
All right, I probably won't get through all of these today, I'll probably do some of them next week. So I was at 3 cities and 2 of my townships so far, and we talked about the EDA, among some other things. And I have 1 more tonight, and then 2 left in May. And Buffalo, City of Buffalo did pass a resolution last night to accept, to opt in to the EDA, so that's good news. The Regional Crime Lab, we're fully staffed now, and they're going through the accreditation process. It's a month-long process. And next year will be the big inspection, but they've always done really well with, passed with flying colors. Just a few things. We are looking at hiring an administrative assistant, which has been the first hire in a long time. A few of the laboratory success, they had in the lab section, biology, they had an auto theft. The turnaround time was 19 days. They had 2 forensic hits to Crystal PD auto thefts, Champlin PD auto theft, and Big Lake PD theft. There's another biology. This was actually a turnaround time of 8 days, which was amazing. And it's a CODIS hit to Minnesota offender sample for a forensic hit. 1 to Hutchinson PD robbery, 1 to a Crow Wing County Sheriff's Office burglary, 1 to Meeker County Sheriff's Office burglary, and 1 to Stearns County burglary.
Sounds like that person gets around.
Yeah. And then a couple more, another biology, it was a burglary. It was a forensic hit to a Brooklyn Park PD robbery, and a criminal damage property. It was a forensic hit to a Brooklyn Park PD robbery. That's 2 separate things. Then also another biology, there was a forensic hit to a Benton County Sheriff's Office burglary. So it's, I always like seeing those success reports, and there's a lot of them, and those are just specific to Wright County. The safety committee met, and you were there, right, Commissioner Ketchmark? No, okay. So we did have 1 incident that we discussed, and there's no new reports of hazardous conditions. The safety inspections, there's good compliance with the COVID plan. The integrated loss control on-site and telephone consulting specialized in OSHA compliance. We actually, there's 16 separate reports that are needed for OSHA compliance, and anyway, so a lot of these, if there are complaints about COVID non-compliance, they do take a while to kind of work through those. Just a couple more. We did have the turn. We had one more graduation, and I attended that ceremony virtually. That's been just very, very successful. And I'll just talk. Yeah, we had our leadership team meeting, which was good to get together with all of our departments again. Our mentorship, education, and drug awareness. We're looking at, with our new staff, our drug-free community hire. She's just got a lot of energy, and we're looking at kind of a new format for the Science of Positive framework for media agenda. So we're only had 3 grants last year because of COVID, and looking hopefully to get some more coming up. Looking at ways to get the information out, and maybe sound bites on KRWC. So anyway, and that's I will close with that because I've got more.
Thank you, Commissioner Houston. Yeah, I'm not going to go through everything either. The extension, we met last, on the 6th in the afternoon, and I'm so impressed with the kids, the 4-H group, and the things they've been doing, and the master gardeners and that sort of stuff. But it's impressive on what those kids are doing out there. So looking forward to the county fair, which is what date?
Sorry, I don't have that off the top of my head.
July something, isn't it?
July 21st?
July 21st through the 25th.
Ah, I was right.
Get that on your calendars now, everybody. Because it's the 150th anniversary of the Wright County Fair. And they got some pretty neat things planned, so hopefully life will be good for us.
We'll have a steam engine there.
Public health, we met, of course, you know, the majority of the topic is on COVID and the amount of vaccines that the health department, Wright County Health Department has provided, and that's been going really well, the way they set it up out at the highway building. They do the first one on a Thursday, and then, 3 or 4 weeks later, they do the second shot on a Tuesday. And it's been working out really good at the highway department. Actually, I had mine a couple weeks ago now. And it's impressive the way it works out there in the highway department.
Yes, it is.
Just to drive through, really you don't have to get out of your car. So, works out really good. Township meeting, which I thought turned out really well.
It was really nice.
We had some good questions asked. Some of them we have control over, some we don't. So, safe schools in St. Michael, biggest issues is mental health that they're having to deal with. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. I sat through kind of a Tyler presentation for the assessor's office, which is the new software they're going to be using, and how that's all going to work out. And I think they said by the end of the year they're hoping to have that all up and running, if I remember correctly. And that's enough for me. Let's listen to Commissioner Vetch and how his wonderful vacation in Florida was.
It was great. I had some great memories with my kids, which is what life's about. Had a couple meetings last week, even while on vacation for CMRP, as we're working through some challenges at this time, just trying to get some agreements on some steps forward. But outside of that, it was a good trip, and there'll be a lot more stuff coming up here in the next 2 weeks for me, so I'm done.
Good.
Have
to you. Yep.
Okay, I guess, our chair already covered extension. April 8th was AIS meeting. Talked about many things, but probably the biggest thing was talked about was a CD3 unit. And what we're going to do with that is we got financing for about half of one. And if we can get enough financing together, we were going to try to put one on Sugar and possibly Clearwater, or if that doesn't work out because we'd have to work with Stearns, then it would go to Pulaski. That's entirely dependent on funding. April 9th was the Highway 55 corridor. And I guess in an omnibus bill, there's some money available by, in the House and Senate, for Highway 55. So we'll look forward to hoping that there actually is some money. Okay, April 12th was the extension. We had the subcommittee for Farm Family of the Year, and we did choose someone, but at this time I'm going to kind of be quiet on that until everything, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. April 12th was the SWCD. Everyone should be getting the 2020 annual report soon. And we approved some highway department contract applications, reviewed some allocations for the lake treatments for AIS with the grants, and then approved a $150 scholarship for the AIS detectors course on May 19th through 21st. Then we looked at some of the One Watershed, One plans, and they've developed some MOAs already, and some of the different entities have been very reluctant to sign them, so we'll see what happens there. And right now for the North Fork Crow River One Watershed, One plan, there was approved a subcontract, and both Kreiser and Bowser have approved this contract. And what it'll do is it just won't make Wright SWCD liable for any things. And again, this week is tree week, so they're going to be out. I'm not exactly sure where they're picking up the trees this year since.
I believe it's the same place it was last year, out at the,
It's been either at the highway department or
No,
at the recycle.
no, it has been at the recycle for a couple of years. It's been out by the highway department. It's actually in the, where the parks are. There's
Yep, I understand.
pole shed out there, and they have it marked really well.
Okay.
On how to get in, and
They're usually really good at that.
yeah. Then it's worked out well for them out there, I think.
Yeah. And April 13th was the Wright County Community Action. Their 2020 audit was accepted by the board, and they went through different fundings and grants and stuff that they've applied for. Then April 19th last night was the Lake Charlotte, Lake Martha Subordinate Sewer District. And just to remind everybody, there's a shortfall due to people prepaying, and thus the bond depended on the people paying the interest. So there's a shortfall as a result of that. And the county has paid those bond payments, so of course that's in the red. So going back to the people trying to decide how to repay that, and also for the county to receive the interest on their monies that might have been lost. And it's kind of goes back to the idea of what the assessment really would be. Tammy and Lindsay were there, and they came up with $2,511 if they paid it all in one assessment, or $2,562 amortized over 3 years. And came up with the maintenance fees to the St. Michael pays for the sewage treatment, lift stations, and grinder pumps only. So we're questioning who would pay if a line broke in Rockford Township, and those lines are owned by the county. So then they'd have to go back and assess the people for those fixing fees. There still needs to be a public hearing, and it'll come before our board also. So that's in the future, and that's it.
Sounds like fun.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's been interesting listening to them hassle over everything. As Bob knows.
Before we get in with our county administrator, I'm gonna kind of roll into it. For the workshop on May 11th,
Ooh.
Administrator Kelly, what do we have scheduled for that one? And is there anything anybody would like to see specific on that one? Because I do have one item that you and I have talked about.
Trying to think what else. I don't recall off the top of my head. I see Bob has his hand up. Do you have something?
Yeah, Bob.
Warren, I was just gonna recommend I could invite Bruce to come out and talk about the condition of our potential refunding, our strategizing what our plan would be, because it has an impact on our investment. Yeah, refinancing or defeasing some of our debt.
That might be a good one to discuss, especially with budgets coming up here shortly, and to get a handle on where we sit with all that. The one that I had talked with the Minister Kelly regarding, and it maybe May 11th is too soon, but it came up with Commissioner Ketchmark regarding propane and how much we're spending on propane out at the compost facility. We need to look at that facility to try and figure out, is there a way to make it more energy efficient? Are there things that we could be adding to the location for the residents of Wright County? What are we doing? What does the future hold for it? How are we advertising it? You know, kind of snowballing to try and figure out what it is, what it should be, what is their wish list. Trying to get some ideas. I mean, we've got a bunch of equipment out there that is absolutely worthless, taking up space, and not worth anything anymore, even under scrap metal.
Yep.
Well, we have to have
Unfortunately.
exactly from a utilization standpoint.
So I just think that it would be good discussion to have. Nothing to make any decisions about, but just to figure out, brainstorm, you know? Should we, shouldn't we? Do we sell it to a local farmer?
Mr. Chair?
Should maybe sell it to a landfill?
And along with that, there's some things being stored out there, I think, by other agencies. If there's a rental agreement or some income coming in, or that could be but isn't, that we should have that on the table also.
Yeah, I think the only other agencies that are having anything out there might be Wright County, or,
Parks or-
no, I don't think the parks have anything out there anymore. They used to.
I saw,
DNR had some
Yeah.
stuff out there.
I saw evidence of DNR stuff,
Yeah,
so.
DNR had some stuff out there, and I thought maybe
Soil and water.
Soil and Water had something too at one time. But I don't remember.
I know they have something, they store the boat at the parks building.
Okay. Now, there was some private stuff out there when we came on board, and that got
Adios.
eliminated immediately.
Adios.
Mr. Chair, all right, one other thing that I think for the workshop is employee clinic and the new building, what month are you gonna bring that forward before budgets?
Yeah, it was either a May or June plan,
Okay.
so, it sounds like May's maybe loading up here, but we could maybe do a brief.
Just wanted to make sure we had that discussion before budgets.
Yeah, yeah, good point. So anyway,
Yeah.
that was my thought, so if there's anything else, I don't know, what do you got scheduled then for the workshop?
I think we covered what I had kind of in the back of my head. I'll have to go check the list up on my desk if there's something else. I know I've had some discussions with the assessor's office about their appraisers, knowing you've had some changes in the local assessors, and staffing and planning for that going into the future. I can't remember the full list off my head, but
Yeah, I do recall, that, well, we lost one assessor, but then, there was a private assessor that quit doing it, so we ended up having to hire somebody to take over those too, so.
correct. Yep, and there's a fair amount the county does to support those outside folks, so.
Yep. Especially a lot of them that aren't real, technology savvy. All right.
Yeah, I'll be brief. A lot of the
You got
things
nothing?
were,
Okay.
were good enough. A few things were touched on during the meeting. I did mention that we had 6 proposals from architects on the dental clinic, so we'll be reviewing those. For the meeting, it was just set to today. You'll see those for the EDA, the RFP went out. You got copied on an email this morning right about the start of the board about that. Did attend the kickoff for the CAMA project, which board chair mentioned. Wanted to point out April 30th will be Law Day in the 10th Judicial District. So get that on your calendars if you're interested. This is, I think, the 3rd or 4th year we've done Law Day, and there will be some free virtual clinics that day. So
Yeah, most of it will be virtual, if I
yep,
remember correctly.
exactly. And information on that is out on the county news section. So.
You know, one thing I was supposed to mention at the very beginning of the meeting, I forgot. The county license for driver's license and that sort of stuff. You make appointments, and then occasionally they've been taking some walk-ins in between. There's a COVID case there, so they're short-staffed now.
Oh.
So they're not going to be taking, for this week, they're not going to be taking any walk-ups. They'll still take the appointment. If you got an appointment, you're
So
covered.
they're not gonna do the outside walk-ups?
No,
Or
the outside will
Not-
still be
okay,
open.
but not the
Just
inside.
the inside. So just the inside for appointments only. So if you've heard that you can walk up and sometimes get in by sitting around and waiting, this week, that's not gonna happen. I forgot to mention that at the very beginning of the meeting, so hopefully the 6 people that watch us haven't turned us off to pass that information on.
I forgot my 2 announcements.
No, too bad. You had your chance.
So the Just Drive event is going to be in Monticello on Saturday from 9 to noon, and that's to raise awareness for the distracted driving. It was started by the LaValleys. And also, the Buffalo in Sturgis Park, there's going to be the Polar Plunge for the Special Olympics that partners with law enforcement. And they are starting at 1, and there's 110, I think, signed up for it so far.
That's on Sunday, you said?
No, Saturday.
Saturday?
And it's a run-in, and they have a goal of $35,000, and they've already got 20,657 committed, so they're doing really well. It's a, run in, run out, but,
The Just Drive event at the Monticello Middle School again?
yes.
And
Oh, I'm
are
sorry,
they-
I
Are they
forgot
gonna
to
have
say.
everybody wear orange again?
Yeah, they're encouraging people to wear orange, yes. Thank you for mentioning that.
Did you have anything else, Administrator Kelly?
I'm good.
Alrighty. And we are adjourned at 10:38.